12, Cronulla Sharks 6.
Awful conditions, but you wouldn't have known in watching the first half of this game which team was playing for the top of the table. And
I've got it recorded to watch later on, but I assume it was a pretty shabby performance from Cronulla.
They just it was a really strong defensive effort from the Rabbitohs.
Okay.
On the defence on the front foot in the first half, defence on the back foot for large parts of the second half. Joe Burgess grabbed a try after bombing a try,
right?
To just seal the deal right at the end, but it was already 8 points to 6 with a minute or so left. It was millimetres in it on both the touchline with the foot and then this hand on the put down, but it was a good try.
Yeah.
Tom Burgess got 120 metres. It seems like he's the twin in form, really.
Yeah.
Sam Burgess, though, 174 metres, 50 tackles, absolute machine. He has been, even in a poor year for him in terms of execution of skills, but execution of effort cannot be faulted. George played as well, but didn't really get that many minutes, really. Didn't really impose himself on the game.
There you go. Okay, so what does that do to the standings down under then?
Well, with 2 rounds left, the Storm still lead the way in the minor premiership race, and a win next week would win that for them. Sharks, Raiders, Bulldogs, Cowboys and Broncos will all be with them in the playoffs. The Panthers are as good as in, with 4 ladder points and a better plus-minus than the teams below. The Dragons are now out of the race for the top 8, and it's looking tough for the Warriors and the Tigers now. Both need 2 wins and help to get in. They play each other next week, so the Titans will be kind of hopeful of a win, and then that seals them.
I see. Very good. Okay, it was the West of England Finals Day over the weekend, Mark, played at Chippenham Rugby Football Club.
Yeah, this we got sent in from Tim G, so it links into the Oxford comments before, I think, with Dan Jameson mentioned.
Yeah.
But in the West of England Plate final, Oxford Cavaliers were 21 points the winners over Southampton Spitfires is 8.
There you go.
A great performance by the Cavaliers in awful conditions, which made any sort of passing move impossible. Particularly impressed by the work of hooker Doug Churnside, wow, that's a good name, and Dan Jameson. Also stood out, Gary Dunn did a great job in dragging the team round with a great 50-metre run in the second half kickoff, and a late drop goal to clinch the trophy. Well done to coach Will Brewer, and hopefully we'll see some of these break into the Oxford RL team too soon, said Tim G Radio. And then the West of England Grand Final between the Portsmouth Seahawks and Swindon St George, 36-24 that ended. Tim had to say this: the Seahawks won this thanks to some fantastic breaks from their speedy backs, earning the space thanks to their big boppers up front. St George defended resolutely and showed a lot of heart in their second half in particular. The Swindon 7 was particularly impressive as a distributor. All in all, it was a good day's rugby with great spirit shown by the 4 teams. It's a shame the RFL didn't try and make more of an event of it. Well, the Super League pod has given it some coverage thanks to Tim G, so good stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's Rugby League taken care of from last week. Let's take a look into the future now as we start to talk about the Challenge Cup final. Right, so there's only one game to talk about in town this week, Mark, and it's the Challenge Cup final. Fans of Hull FC and Warrington going to be heading down the motorway to Wembley on Saturday morning to watch the top 2 sides in Super League do battle. It's a mouth-watering fixture. I'm a little bit gutted not to be going, but I will be making time on Saturday afternoon to sit down and enjoy the BBC's coverage of this one. And it's so hard to pick a winner. I've been back and forth on this all week.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard.
Similar packs.
I desperately hope it isn't, the 40-odd errors a game. Every game that's been hotly anticipated, every game between the top 4 sides has been dire this year, really.
Yeah.
Certainly in the back half of the year, when there's been any sort of anticipation been able to be created around the games, has been pretty poor. So I'm hoping we don't get that desperately.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll. I think there's a bit of strength on strength, isn't there, in terms of the front row, the form of the front row, the form of the hookers. I find it hard to pick.
It's really tricky, isn't it?
Like, I suppose you've got 2 good form fullbacks.
Yeah.
They work through the teams, 2 good form fullbacks, but one's a running player more and one's a ball player more, but both are being very effective
in
for
their
their
roles.
sides. On the wings, you've certainly Talano's in outstanding form, but then so is Matty Russell.
Yeah.
In the centres, Atkins is playing as well as he's played in his time at Warrington, and he's one of the players they have got who's got winning Challenge Cup experience.
As has Kurt Ewing on the other side of the ball for Hull FC.
And then the bigger threat for me in the centres is Mahe Fanua, who's been, an absolute weapon. He seems so big. I don't remember him being that big at Melbourne, but he seems so big and so powerful.
Big weapon for them.
So then we move into the halves, and you've got to say Snade's playing probably more controlled and more and better than Gidley's playing.
Yeah.
Even though one wears 6 and one wears 7, I think they're the ones you compare to each other role in the team wise.
Definitely.
I'm not sure. Tumabave's got a lot of excitement in him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether Tumabave and Snade for the stage will be ideal for them or not. We'll see if they flourish on that stage.
Yeah.
Whereas we sort of know already that the
halves for
Warrington with their experience could probably handle that.
Yeah.
Although it's the biggest game that Kurt Gidley's ever played in his career, and Sandow's not exactly littered with finals experience either. So we're talking about 2 players who have. Well, he's played in State of Origin and tests, but
Gidley's played in a World Club final, hasn't he?
Well, if he has, it was when he was young.
Yeah.
But he hasn't played in. He'd only played 1 or 2. He's not played many final series in his time at Newcastle, has he?
No, true.
He's played Origin, so of course those were big games. But club-wise, it's a massive stage for them both, and they've not been in great form. Sandow has been struggling a bit. I don't know if there's a niggle in his calf or his thigh or his hamstring or something, but there's something in that leg that's.
Yeah, there's still in that leg that's not been right since about 20 minutes into the game against you guys, I think. I know he's had some time out with that, but there's something going on there.
Well, there's been the game. It was the game against St Helens 2 weeks ago when he seemed injured to me, and he hasn't been quite the sparky player that he was before.
See, I think that equalises the 2 sets of halves for me, though. The fact that the Hull FC halves are in form but lack experience against the experienced halves that aren't quite clicking at the minute.
Yeah, at the moment it's a draw, isn't it, in terms of the positions we're looking at. Even within the position groups, there's no one that stands out above the others to me so far that we've got through the teams.
Moving out of the pack then,
so
it's even harder.
Let's start at the back of the pack.
Yeah.
So you've got Westerman and Westwood as probably your people who play a bit of the time in that. Westerman probably might play the majority of the game there, at least forward for Warrington. And I think he's bagged tries in his last few games.
Yeah.
And you've got try-scoring threats and very energetic players who work hard in defence in Curry and Jack Hughes. So that's a good young solid group with someone like a Westwood, someone like that to come off the bench and supplement that. In contrast to Minicello, I don't know, is Manu going to be fit?
I think that's why they were resting him.
And then Ellis.
Him and Ellis were rested, I
He's obviously rested. Very important to this side, particularly defensively, and in terms of the setting the tempo and the urgency and that sort of stuff. That's an old group against a young group.
Yeah.
And I think the young group's in slightly better form than the older group, and even throw into that Frank Pritchard.
Yeah.
But the weapons in that older group, they're going to create more for them, for other people around them, whereas you need someone to create something for those
Warrington, second rowers at Warrington.
For those Warrington back three, I feel, more than they'll create something for someone else. So that's the difference there. But I think in terms of all of that, you kind of trade it off again, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. It evens yourself out. And then the prop forwards then. That's just going to be brutal, isn't it?
Well, I actually think Scott Taylor's the only consistently informed prop forward Hull FC have got at the moment. Some of the other ones have been fighting so hard to get their place in the side that they put a lot of energy into that. Whether that will stand them in good stead because people like Bowden and Green have worked themselves into some sort of form. Watts has gone off the boil. I don't know if he missed last week, and I don't know if it was injury related or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was rested.
But he's gone off the boil a little bit for me. I don't think he's performed well in the last few weeks I've seen him, and I've been a big fan of his ever since he came into that Hull KR side 5 years or so ago. 5 6 years ago, I rated him highly, as you know. I think he's gone off the boil a bit in the last few weeks, and so you're talking about Scott Taylor then, for me, as being the one form one of that bunch. Chris Hill is banging form, and the best front rower on the pitch by a head, at least, maybe head and shoulders. I think is that
what, from Scott Taylor?
Scott Taylor's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I think, and he has been there and done it before. That's important. But Chris Hill, for me, is a better player.
Yeah,
is the best forward on the pitch for me.
I think he's
Ashton Sims is in better nick than
Liam Watts.
Or even the Bowdens or the Greens. The thing for where it equalises itself out again is I think that Hull FC have more players to bring in who are in better form than what you're going to get from Warrington. Their bench on the prop side of things not quite as good. I mean, you've got King, you've got Westwood, and you've got Bailey, who are probably going to mix and match in a bit of that. I don't think Jordan Cox is on the radar now at this stage. So I think that balances the fact that Hill and Sims are going so well. It's balanced off by the bench not being as strong in that position. So ties it off. We're going to talk about the hookers now.
We are, yeah. Well, I mean, my thoughts on it. I think the hooking. I think 9 is where this game's going to be won and lost potentially, or is going to have a big impact on it. And I'm looking at Brad Dwyer as the one who's going to make the difference. We know what form Daz Clark's in, and we all know what form Mate's in as well. I think, or something I suspect could happen, and what they need to look out for if you're Hull FC is when Tony Smith decides to inject Brad Dwyer into the game. And if he picks his moment right and puts Brad Dwyer in at a time when the Hull FC pack might be tiring or coming to the end of a stint, that could be really dangerous, because as good as they both are, and they are quite similar players, aren't they, Clark and Dwyer, but Dwyer's is the impact hooker, isn't he? And he comes in and he could cause absolute mayhem around the ruck if Hull FC are tiring and looking to kind of just see it through for another 5 minutes or so. And that could be a really interesting... That's something I'm looking out for when Tony Smith and Richard Aagaard decide to deploy Brad Dwyer. And I think that's going to make a difference, because you see Danny Houghton doing 80 minutes predominantly, and you see the 9-0 being split with Warrington. Is that going to give Warrington more go forward, a more consistent, speedy scoots out of dummy half, and is that going to be the thing that breaks the game open?
Well, on top of the Clark and Dwyer mix, you've got Russell and Rashford, who are going to be massive influences out of dummy half as well in this game. And I agree with you, it's a big factor. So you've got kind of the more measured and permanent, constant, perpetual Danny Houghton type of thing.
And he never seems to lack energy, to be fair.
Picks and chooses his moments. Whereas Warrington's game plan has moved more into just fucking hammer it out of dummy half. That's what we're doing here. Get the ball to them 2 units either side of the ruck. And then when we get into attacking positions, let's just hope if a nice ball gets put on by one of those 3 ball players we've got in 1, 6 and 7 to put these runners we've got in 11 and 12 through gaps. That's kind of, or what kicks can we produce? But they're making meters hand over fist because of that ruck, dynamism, speed. It wins you penalties against teams that might have, ageing players or whatever. Tiring players, however you might want to dress it up. So Hull FC have rested players with that in mind, I guess. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be a big area, and it's an area I give half a mark more. I don't think Danny Houghton's as good as people think he is, and I'm not saying that he's not a really good player. He's a top level Super League player. He's not
world class.
He's not the next echelon. I think Darryl Clark is the next echelon. I think he has a little bit more. For me, that's just for me, though.
The thing that I look at with this is that with Warrington,
Houghton's going to get man of the match now.
You what? Sorry,
Houghton's obviously going to get man of the match now.
Yeah, mate. What I see in this game is that Warrington have got a bit. I just think if things are going wrong for Hull FC, I'm not sure where Plan B comes from for them. And I think if Warrington are in their faces and are running the ball hard and suddenly tear them to smithereens a couple of times, I don't know where the spark comes from. I don't know if you can trust Tumavave to provide that necessarily, given his lack of experience. Sneyd's a tremendous game manager, and he's going to get them around the park, and that's going to be his role.